Hello and welcome to our wonderful Wednesday Blissful cooking class. This week we are going to be making Shrimp Ettouffee, which is this wonderful Creole dish. Super flavorful, super fun, and kind of, like really meditative, making the roux and everything. We're going to go through it in a little bit more detail, obviously. But it's actually, even though it seems sort of, oh gosh, it's like quite a few steps, it's simple, like making a soup or a stew often is. Really, we're just sauteing some vegetables. Here we're adding a roux, which is toasted flour and butter to thicken it. And so that's sort of the new step, that we're adding spices, and then we're adding shrimp and broth and letting it all come together. Right? So not so intimidating, but sort of using things in just a slightly different way to end up with this really distinct, pronounced style, which is this Creole cuisine. So exciting times to come. But before we begin, let's do what we always do and start with our breath. Come into the kitchen. Leave behind whatever's happened with the rest of the day. Leave what's happening next for when you're there. And let's just be together. And take some breaths together. Slow, deep ones. Let's do a few rounds of Samavriti. That's the equal breath. So we're going to inhale slowly, sipping the breath that's through a straw, slightly constricting the glottis muscle in our throat so we can hear a kind of hissing sound inside to slow it down. Coming to your comfortable peak, the inhale, and then exhaling the same number or sense of that time. I'm just going to count for us for a few breaths. So inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And exhale, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and exhale, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And let's do a few rounds on our own. Use whatever number works for you, or don't use the numbers at all. And let the last exhale be last one. Let's bring our hands to heart center. Set our intention for a time together. Okay, hands can come down. Let's get started. Okay, so like most of the time, we need to start with chopping some vegetables. We have onion, pepper, and celery instead of onion. Carrot, celery is the French traditional beginnings of a soup or a stew. But in Creole tradition, Cajun cuisine as well, this is what they go with. And that's what we're doing today. And I actually really like it. And we're going to be adding garlic and all kinds of things later. The recipe that I have guiding us actually calls just for half of a red onion, half of a pepper. I'm going to use the whole thing because I like vegetables and I also like rebelling, I guess. I just like can never quite follow a given recipe. I'm like allergic to it or something. This is part of who I am and I accept myself. Getting off that papery skin, taking some deep calming breaths. There really are times when I'm doing something like this, right now being one of them, where I'm kind of going, oh, you should go faster, especially I think when I'm doing it for the camera. I think, oh, you should do this quickly because that's sort of that's what the system is, right? On most of what we've seen of like a cooking show or when we see people demonstrate, they're always moving very quickly. And there's this sort of like, oh, we have to hurry to like respect people's time and all that kind of thing. And that's the sort of belief. But I respect your time enormously. I also respect your right to go at your own pace, you know? And I think modeling what is an appropriate pace and modeling how to regulate moving a little bit more naturally, not in such a rush all the time. I know for me, like I'm a quick moving person. I'm excitable. I'm full of energy most days, you know, of course, not every day. And so I do tend to move fairly quickly. That's my natural state. And so for me, in some ways, it's actually a good kind of challenge. I don't force myself to do this, but I notice that when I slow myself down, that's where I can notice, oh gosh, I have held some tension in my body. And if I breathe and I'm slowly moving with awareness, tension begins to release from my body. And that's just such a good thing. I can't overstate it. Tension leaving our body means anxiety leaving our body. It means the felt sense of worry leaving our body. It means fear leaving our body. It means it leaves freedom behind, freedom for us to make the decisions that we want to make, freedom for us to have more control over our mind and what it's thinking about. Because when our body is uncomfortable with all this tension, it affects our mind and our thoughts. Really, most of our thoughts are actually just a reflection of what we're feeling in our body. And so when our body is all full of stuff that we don't realize, it's causing our thoughts to be really uncomfortable. And so you'll notice as you practice these kinds of things more, you're like, gosh, I just feel, even though I'm worried about, or I have some things to do with it, or I'm worried about it, I'm not sure how to handle them. When your body feels good, you feel a sense of confidence and hope about whatever you have to do next. And so that's always what we're trying to do. And we can do this any time of day. Oh. So here we have our onion. I'm putting it in this bowl. Red onion is always my preference. That's just what I like. That's what I always have around. You can use white or yellow for sure. Maybe one day I'll get back into using different onions again. Who knows? Oh, having a little cry. Always a good thing. I don't know where you are in the world, any of you watching this, but here in Brooklyn, we are experiencing some pretty bad air quality at the moment because of some wildfire smoke that has come down from Canada. Actually, very interesting for me anyway, is that that part of Canada is actually where my family is from. And they were experiencing this last month just enormously. And there's something kind of amazing and connecting about just realizing that's the way that our world works. You know, we share the same air, the same sky, the same clouds. It all is just moving around our big, beautiful planet. And we experience the same things as each other all the time. And so I'm experiencing this like, really rough, smoky air in the last couple of days. Unfortunately, my daughter had to have her field trip canceled, and I was going to do a yoga class or lead a yoga class in the park this morning. I had to cancel that because of it. And, you know, obviously I'm not suggesting this is a good thing. Obviously, bad air quality is not a good thing. It's unhealthy for us. But what I just noticed is I'm feeling this sort of like amazement and connection about our world. Crispy. Oh, I don't know if I've ever shared this. I should say it more, but part of breathing and really breathing consciously the way that we are, where we're breathing and trying to release tension, you know, come into the now, is actually also just allowing yourself to make the sounds that you want to make. I don't mean talking normally like a or bleh, or like silly things, especially if you're on your own. You know, I can understand being maybe self-conscious if you're with other people, and luckily for me, I don't seem to have any self-consciousness left in me, so I can do this for you all. But truly, to just allow your sort of animal self to come through, and I'm gonna do 2 of these. Oh, it smells so nice. Celery is so refreshing. And I'm not like a huge celery fan, so I don't buy it often. But then whenever I do, I'm like, celery's kind of great. So I don't know what that's all about. I'm gonna slice this one in half. You can have small pieces, actually this one too. Even though these are quite small pieces of celery, I still want them to be kind of the same size as everything else. What was I saying? Just allow yourself to go, like, let your body in every way, the voice, the movement, the breath, let it all echo this, allowing yourself to just be, you know, especially when you're on your own, especially when there's no one who you have to explain yourself to, who might be judging you or thinking you're acting weird or wrong or something. Allow yourself to be whatever you need to feel good, to feel your best, to release anything that's just kicking around, stress that doesn't belong to you. Give yourself that gift. You deserve it. You deserve it for real. Okay, one more, because that's a pretty small pile, I'm thinking. Fabulous. Celery done. Okay, so that's here. And then I'm actually going to do the garlic, and I'm going to do tomatoes as well. And then we're going to move over to the stove for the rest of it. You know what? I actually think probably canned tomatoes are the better choice for this particular dish, but I don't have any at the moment. So I'm using these beautiful fresh baby tomatoes, which are wonderful, but just sort of, I don't know, with fresh tomatoes like this, I tend to just like to eat them raw more and save cooked tomato things like canned tomatoes for cooked tomato experiences. That is my preference and kind of my tip too. Like, not only saves money, but I actually think ultimately it just like honors the flavor of everything a little bit more. Oh, here, let me just grab these guys that are getting a little past their prime, and they will be wonderful for use in here. Okay. So I'm just gonna cut them in half. I think I'm gonna just quarter them. There we go. Ugh. Juices come blasting out. Just allow yourself to be kind of transported by, I don't know what it, for me, it's the sounds today, actually, more than the feel and the aroma. It's that slice, slice, slice. If you like, actually, you could try syncing up your breath. Inhale and exhale. Inhale, exhale. Do you notice? I definitely do that as we cook together. I notice that the amount of breath that I can take in and smoothly blow out becomes longer and longer as and that is a direct result of tension release. Because the reason that we often can't hold, I mean, there's lung capacity, there's sort of a certain level of, cardiovascular health that we need, but ultimately, so much of what makes it hard for us to take in and out air is just tension in the body. Like literally, everything is like holding the rib cage too big, and so you need to be able to expand enough to hold all the air that you want, that you actually have the capacity for. And so you need to be flexible and open enough to do that. And so when we release tension, we find, oh, there's a natural capacity for more air. And why would we want that? Well, it's almost one of those things I can't even describe it. But it is so good. It is just to be able to breathe more deeply, is to fundamentally feel more alive. And you will experience that. And you'll know, you'll get it. Okay. Oh my gosh. All right, garlic. Wonderful. And I'm just going to put them in slices like that. I think that's fine. I'm going to leave it there. And then I also have I've prepped some Creole seasoning. It's in the recipe, so I didn't talk to you a lot about it, but it's basically some thyme. I actually don't add the parsley and basil as well because I just don't think they have a lot of flavor in their dried version. So I do onion and garlic powder, paprika, Actually onion, not ground onion, but little flakes, because that's just what I had. The thyme, I think, is worth doing, and then a little smoked paprika in here. That's sort of my version. But basically, something spicy, something with thyme, something oniony, garlicky, you'll be good. Get one of those things of Creole seasoning from the store if you really are into that, or kind of make it out of a little bit out of the stuff that you have. As you can see, it's also kind of it's like we're repeating. We already have onion, we already have garlic, and then we're adding that more in this dried format as well, and adding these herbs and stuff too. So that's that. And I also have a pound of shrimp, which was frozen this morning. I left it on the counter, and then I just ran it under cold water through the sieve just to break up the ice and stuff so that it's ready to go. And we also have some vegetable broth, which I just made from like a bouillon cube. Actually, not a cube, but anyway, simple. Let's move over to the stove. I'm going to grab our video setup. Thank you, as always, for your patience here. Okay. Wonderful. I think that's, maybe let's go a little further. Great. Okay, so here we have our pan. Actually, you know what? I am going to use this. This will be so much easier for y'all to see. Oh, look at me yawling because I'm doing a southern dish. How funny is that? Actually, yeah, can I get this closer? Yes, here we go. Okay, so here we go. We're going to add, the recipe calls for 1 tablespoon of butter and 1 tablespoon of canola oil. I don't have canola oil. I have a little bit of sunflower oil. I'm going to use what I have, and I'm going to add just a little bit more butter. I think it's fine, actually, to use all butter myself. Woo! Oh, this is going to be so fun. So I've got it on medium heat. We're going to let the butter melt completely. And then we're going to add about 1/4 cup of flour. I'll just get a measuring cup just to be official for once. It is a nice place to be a little bit more careful. Like we're trying for equal parts of flour and butter. And that's what will make sure that this is a nice roux, a nice thickener. It's fun. Shrimp Ettouffee is also one of my dad's favorite meals. And I've not shared this on here, but my dad is very sick. And he's not going to be with us for much longer. So every time I think of him in any way, it makes me quite emotional. And I think that's a gift, Sometimes it's hard to feel. I'm tearing up a little bit thinking about it, wishing that I could make this for him, share it with him who lives in Canada. But that I love him and get to think about him and still do get to see him and talk to him. I'm glad of that. Okay, so we have bubbling and full melting here. I'm going to add in my 1/4 cup of flour. Set that aside. And I'm going to use this spatula, silicone spatula. Such a great tool for this particular thing. I think so much easier than using a wooden spoon, personally. And so I'm just going to mix this up a little bit to smooth it out. We don't want it to be lumpy. And you can see it's this sort of blonde color right now. We're looking for it to darken a little bit. So special. I'm gonna bring my vegetables over. These roux in sort of French cooking, which of course is what Creole and Cajun cuisine comes from, sort of French, can't think of the word, but they came from France, and then they were in America, and they took over the place, and that whole thing. It comes from that, so we have this French influence, but then there's taking it and making it their own from all kinds of the mixing of different traditions. And so in a lot of French cuisine, a lot of mother sauces use this just as a thickener. And it's like basically now you would like to make a mac and cheese, like a cheese sauce, a Mornay sauce. You would add in milk right now and it would get really thick, and then you'd add cheese to it and it would melt in and it would all be this lovely smooth texture. Whereas if you don't add the roux, it won't thicken enough, and the fat from the cheese will kind of separate, and it'll just be it won't be like a nice, smooth, beautiful experience that like sticks to your finger or the spoon. And so, but in this kind of cooking, can you see what changed? So that it goes from blonde, and now we have this toasty color happening, this light caramel. And so that's the flour toasting. And so that is what Cajun cuisine does, is it says, hey, why not like add more flavor into this situation by actually like making the thing that's thickening it, and just there sort of with this purpose of thickening, let's allow it to add more flavor, which is so cool. Such a brilliant thing to do, in my opinion. So I actually think we're good. We could go a little deeper, but I think for an etouffee, I don't like it to go super deep. When it's, if we're making a jambalaya, we might go a little longer. Or sorry, not a jambalaya, a gumbo. Okay, so we're gonna add the veggies in now. And mix it all around. We're getting the flour, we're getting the roux all over everything. And I'm going to turn the heat down a little bit, add a bit of salt, and I'm going to cover it. I'm going to go get tomatoes. Tomatoes and our seasoning and bay leaf. And our sliced garlic, which I am, yes, bringing over on the knife. That's the choice that I made. This is so fun, actually. I love making things like this. I don't do it too often. I don't know, it's actually interesting ways to analyze, because I think, I do this teaching and I know how simple so many foods are, and yet we get out of practice and we think there's certain things like, that sounds like shrimp etouffee, like it has a name. It must be a lot to make it. Nope. It's just so much of breaking down. What am I even saying? I think so many of us get stuck in ruts in the kitchen, or think that we can't have experiences that we can have. And it's really just as simple as not believe, like it's sort of just like, I don't quite believe in myself. I don't believe I can do that. I don't believe I can have that. At least that's my experience a lot of the time. It's not really based in reality. We think we don't have enough time or enough ability. And we usually do. It doesn't mean, we should all be making shrimp etouffee all the time, because this may not be a dish that works for you. It may take too much time. I would say going quickly, this is about a 45-minute, hour if you're taking your time kind of a meal. And so that's probably not a weeknight meal, but it's something that you could make on a weekend. It's something you can make a large quantity of. It's something you could have some bits of it prepared partially. It's all about sort of what we value and what we enjoy, and just figuring that out and then honoring that, whatever it is. And honoring that will change, that there are phases in life. I think when we have very young children, we want everything to be a little simpler when it comes to our meal preparation. Yes, as it should be. And yet we may find ourselves craving foods or time to ourselves. And so we need to honor that and try our best to give that to ourselves when we can. And then also accept that we may not get as much of it as we'd like during this time. And there will come a time when the children are older and suddenly they don't want to spend so much time with you. And you have time, and you can do this again. And you'll miss that they want to be with you so much, right? That's always it. And I know it's like such a sort of cliche, and none of us can really, it's just how we are built. But to appreciate exactly where we're at, that's this practice, right? Coming into just now, being with what we're doing. That's what gives us the capacity to be in those moments of appreciating just being with our crazy wild kids who we can only just get boxed mac and cheese on the table, and that's all we can do. And you just go, okay, fine. It's temporary. And then when it's something different, you'll miss that. Because every moment of our lives, no matter how difficult they are, is precious. And I say that very, very sincerely, not in a sort of Pollyanna-ish, oh, this is how we need to force ourselves to be. I think we don't feel that a lot of the time. They're really, really challenging parts of life that do not feel precious. But they still are. And the more we allow ourselves to be with just what is going on, the more we feel that. And we can actually feel and experience authentically the preciousness of our life at all times. We have a little bit of browning. Beautiful. You guys see this? So it's like the usual vegetables. Ooh, look, one of my hairs is in here. Let's get that out of there. But then there's the roux is all over it, so it's looking sort of a lot more gooey. I'm going to add in the garlic now. And actually, also the spices. The recipe calls to add them in later, but that doesn't really make sense to me. I'm going to do about half of what I prepared here and see how that feels. We do want this to be quite spicy. Spiced. Because for me, we always want to get a nice toasting on our spices. We don't want to add it later on. It's something I learned from South Asian cooking, and I just live by it. It's so darn important, and it works so well. Maybe a little bit more. I'm going to do it all. It might be too much, but we're going to go with it. Oh, look how good this looks. I'm like, whew, the aroma is telling me I didn't make a bad decision. Oh, there's black pepper in this mix too. Black and white pepper, I believe, traditionally. I didn't have any white pepper. Hilarious that I don't have white pepper, because I truly have I showed you guys? I mean, we have all of these over here, and then we have this entire drawer filled with spices. Bit of a spiceaholic over here. A little bit more salt. Doesn't really matter exactly when you add the salt. I just want to make sure that by the time everything is done, that it's nicely salted. And of course we can adjust at the end, but good to do it earlier than that if possible. Okay, I'm gonna add just a little bit of water because I can see things sticking a bit. I'm gonna leave this for a few more minutes for things to get soft. We could do a traditional meditation for a few minutes, or just stand here and kind of appreciate the warmth, the sounds, tune into our breath a little bit. Allowing our mind not to sort of go elsewhere, but to be here. Okay, let's check on it again. Looking good, and we're going to add the tomatoes now. The tomatoes are going to release a ton of juice. So we're going to let that happen for a few minutes. I'm going to take this stuff over and just put it in the sink. Whoa. I'm going to actually chop the scallions, and my apologies for being off camera, but this doesn't make sense for me to bring the whole setup over there. Just doing the scallions for a little topper at the end. So the sounds you hear me chopping 2 scallions. Wonderful. Take a little bit of parsley, actually cilantro. Didn't have parsley, and it's super different. So like you shouldn't really swap these out, but for me, it's not a big deal. I quite like cilantro in this situation, even though it is totally not traditional. So we've got that to sort of top our dish at the end. It's also definitely nice to serve this with rice. I didn't make any rice today because I have plenty left over, so I'll just warm some up when I'm ready to eat it. Okay, let's check on our, oh yeah! So I hope it's possible to see, but this has just released so much juice, but it's quite sticky on the bottom. And that's okay. That's actually flavor. And so what we're going to be doing now is bring over this broth. And what we're going to be doing is called deglazing. So I'm going to add, not all of it, but just a bit. And I'm going to use my spatula to release this stuff on the bottom. And at first you're going to be like, well, it's really stuck there. It's really jammed on. Watch the magic happen. The more I do this, the more I stir, and the more the liquid mixes with this stuck part, the more it begins to release. And I'm going to turn it down low. I'm going to continue to add. So I'm just going to add it all. We're good. Yeah. And as it begins to boil and we get all this stuff in, it's going to get lovely and thick. And look at the color of this. It's from the roux, this dark brown and all those spices. And actually, no, it's too bad you can't see it now, but I can feel with this, yay for our senses, that it's not sticking to the bottom anymore. I can feel that I've managed to release almost all of that. Probably once it thickens up, I'll be able to show you a little bit. Yeah, that's that. Glorious. I kind of want to try this to see about salt right now and spices. It's not too spicy. Wow, cool. Yeah, it's definitely not too spicy. That's great. And actually it needs just a little bit more salt. Great news. Okay. And traditionally we also add Worcestershire sauce. Don't have any at the moment. I'm just going to add a tiny bit of soy sauce, which is honestly really not a particularly good substitute, but it's what we're doing today. And now I'm going to add my shrimp. In they go, all at once. And now we just let these dear friends become pink. Let everything thicken and bubble up. And that's that. How wonderful. I think since I am just waiting, I'm going to warm up a bit of this rice for myself so I can show you what it looks like. In its most beautiful state. And so I've got these, shrimp, frozen shrimp can be bought in so many, I have these big guys. I actually quite like the smaller ones, though they would cook a little bit faster. And so it depends a little bit, just thinking about the size of your shrimp a little bit, but any shrimp will do. Probably, I'm just realizing, of course, that I should have waited for it to boil and thicken a little bit actually before adding the shrimp, just so that I know how thick it's going to be by the time, like I'm just adding in the shrimp and then they'll cook as long as they need, and that's that. Because I may need to go a little longer for it to get the consistency I want than the shrimp needs, but that's okay. So extremely minor mistake. That is, I don't think, a real problem. We have some bubbles happening here. That means thickening. I'm also going to just fish out this bay leaf. While I can. And a lot of people think, like, what's the point of a bay leaf? And I understand it's not like the most powerful flavor, but it really does have this special savory flavor that I think is noticeable. If you have one, use it. If you don't keep them, yeah, skip it. It's no big deal. I'm going to just turn up the heat to increase the thickening. Quite fun to just watch things change. I'm going to indulge my childlike glee right now and just appreciate this. Just bathing my face in steam and aroma. Only the one who cooks it gets to experience this. Lots of people might get to eat it, but only we get to experience this. You can see there's quite a bit of water kind of releasing from the tomatoes because I didn't cook them for very long. So that might be another thing for the future is this is a little waterier than it should be because I didn't cook the tomatoes for all that long. But that's okay. Live and learn. We're living, just repeat the same mistakes that you've made before because I totally know this, but I just wasn't thinking as we were going along. I think the shrimp are basically good. You know what I was thinking? That making this with beans would be amazing, like bean etouffee. It would really soak up the flavor. Oh, it would be delicious. Yeah, I gotta try that. Like making this the exact same way, but then instead of adding shrimp, we're adding like some white beans. Maybe the big butter beans. Oh, that would be. Like beans and a little sausage if you wanted to keep it Louisiana. I'm gonna give it another 2 minutes to boil off some of the excess water and thicken up, and then I'm gonna call it, just for us to finish up our class for today and to not overcook the shrimp. Sort of accepting an in-between state. Call back. Remember earlier I said that when we breathe, we should release whatever we need to release. That's what I'm doing. I'm releasing a little bit of that, darn, I didn't get this just right feeling. You know, despite that I preach this day in, day out, that we don't want to be perfectionistic about these types of things. You know why I do that? Because I have lifelong struggled with such things. So it remains something I have to work on. Witness me. We're going to call it. Looks pretty good. I mean, and it's crazy hot, so I'm not sure I can really. Yeah. Tastes wonderful. Tastes wonderful. Oh, okay. I'm going to bring us back over here for the final moments. The final moments. I can't get this straight again. Oh well. Okay. Apologies. Here we are. I'm going to get some rice in my bowl. Can you see this over here? Yes, great. Get just a little rice. I don't need a ton. And let's serve our glorious etouffee. So nice. Whoop. Need a bit of a mess of that. And then some scallions. And for me, cilantro. For you, perhaps not. And here we have it. Pretty special dish. Really hot, so I'm going to be so careful. I love it. Personally, texture imperfection aside, very happy with that. Happy with the whole experience. I hope you guys learned something and enjoyed it. As always, see you next time. Let me know if there's anything else you're interested in, any questions, anything you want to explore. I am so down. I love to hear from you. I'm inspired by what you ask for, genuinely. It makes it so much easier than me just sort of picking and choosing what you might like. So please engage. I love to hear from you, and talk to you soon. Bye. Oh, and if you like this, tell your friends to join us. We can grow the community, and I can do more. I can hire someone to film for us, that kind of thing. It'd be so exciting to be able to really grow this into a club where we really interact and we learn from each other, and who knows what could happen. Very exciting. Okay, until next time. Bye-bye.